Alright, so today we are going to be doing something that probably has been a little bit requested from some other people. It's not actually the most difficult thing to do, whereas actually downloading and installing the actual mod, getting it to work properly with the exports and everything like that, is going to be the hardest thing for you to do. Now what I'm talking about is, of course, ReplayMod. So you probably heard a lot about this. It is one of the best things in Minecraft to get a third-person time-lapse without the need of a second account, because it also has a lot more features to it than having just a stationary second account. So today we're going to learn how to use it, how you can use it in single-player, multiplayer, and everything like that. I will not be showing a tutorial on how to download it. I will link some down below. That way you can go do that yourself. There's plenty of other good tutorials out there, and I don't think I could do any better than the ones that are already there. So I'm going to link some of them down below, the ones basically I followed to get it all to work, and you should be able to do that for your version, of course. So yeah, if you did see it in the previous episode, I did do a time lapse of one of the wall buildings for this Guardian Farm perimeter. I did do a time lapse for that in the survival episode. So basically what you're going to want to do is you're going to download and install that mod. So once you have that installed, you're going to have this little extra button on the side here called Replay Viewer. You won't have anything in here if you've never done a replay before. So for example, let's go back to the one where I was destroying the Nether hub and building the new one. So we have the new retext under the hub here for the AutoCraft server. We did originally have a quartz theme, and I did change it over, of course, to something that actually fits the AutoCraft theme, which is, you know, the black and orange. Basically due to the fire heart and everything like that. We have a little couple mini Easter eggs, just a little heart, the heart shape right there. This of course connects to all of our existing piston bolts that lead to various locations in the Nether, and also lead to different portals in the overworld to transfer you over there. And the main thing about this was we added a second floor, that way you can go up here and then into the second floor bolts that go in the opposite directions of the east and west bolts. So we have north and south as well. So of course, this is actually after you have your replay. So what we're going to do after this is I'm going to show you how to actually start recording a replay and then take it and actually edit the replay. So this is what the finished product looks like once you have a lot of camera movements and things like that. Of course, it's not going to be the best in this viewer here. As you can see, it's quite jumpy all over around. Once you do hit this render button over here and you actually render it completely out, it'll be a lot smoother depending on your presets, of course. So mainly what you want to do is you want to try to track your player. So move it forward a couple minutes at a time, depending on how big your project is. And if you're moving across like a large area like this, you're going to want to track the player to get the best replay of it. That way you're focusing on what you're building, not focusing on something that's nothing's being happened over there. So here I'm on this side over here, we're tracking that. Once we get back to the other side, you're going to see me go back across the middle here again, and then we'll go back and focus on the other side, because I'm only doing one side at a time here. This will probably, if you want to do this for content creation, you will probably want to keep in mind the ease of editing for you. So if you stick to one side of building this compared to layer by layer, it'll be a lot easier to track and then move from side to side. So here we're going to go back to the other side over here, and then we're back over here. So keep in mind when you're doing this yourself, you're going to want to keep the editing part while you're building as well. Some very good showcase of this is going to be Ilario on YouTube. Look up him. He does a full time lapse of everything he does, and just the way he follows everything for the content that he does, because he does it all just in time lapses form. Definitely go check that out, because it's a lot more smoother than what I'm doing here, just because there's a lot more camera movements. I'm necessarily just doing a full overview of building everything. So if you just want to, you know, do a lot more time lapse, there's going to be a lot more progress to be shown in this compared to this, you know, the one right here where I'm just doing a quick little Nether hub and then the final product there going through all different halls. So yeah, we're actually going to go into a single player world here. By default, these will be on, I'm pretty sure. If not, you're going to click on the top right here to record single player. That way, the second you load into the game, it will start recording. Now, if you don't want that to happen, either hit this pause or this stop. The pause will continue when you unpause it. The stop will completely stop it out, and then wherever you go again, it'll then start there. Let it go, and record like that. This is just a couple new crafters that I created here for when we use in the Guardian Farm project on our server. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simulate this being on, and we're going to get a little replay of this actually working here. If you don't know what this is an auto crafter. This is a mod that was designed to work with ReplayMod that adds dropper and hopper support to give the crafting table a little bit of an inventory, kind of like how you have a furnace in the game. So, you know, you can do super smelters with furnaces and brewing stands and things like that. So how you can just input stuff into a furnace with a hopper, this also adds support for that as well. It allows us to craft blocks without needing the player to do anything, which is a huge help. So yeah, now that's done. Stop right there. So you're going to want to hit escape and then stop. And if you wanted to pause it and then go somewhere else and resume it again, you could also do that. But for this example, just pause it, just stopping it outright, then we'll do that. Also, if you just wanted to stop and leave the game, that also does stop the recording. Personally, if I'm not leaving the server immediately or the single player world immediately, just stop it. That way you don't have an extra, 20 minutes or so at the end of the replay file that aren't needed. It helps to save it faster and just move everything along a lot smoother. Now, if your game does crash, most of the time the replay file is pretty much lost. There is a way that it does there is some times where it tries to recover it, but it's not 100%, so I wouldn't rely on that. But it is possible to kind of save the footage, in a sense. Because it's only recorded locally and for the game crashes, then everything else is basically just lost. So you might not be able to recover everything, so just keep that in mind when you're doing that. So yeah, now that you have it recorded, we're going to save and quit the title. They're usually, depending on how long of the replay was, there'll be a little progress bar over here that is saying like save and replay file, whatever. And once it gets all the way done, then it'll be in this little section right here. So yeah, now that we have our replay file, when you join in, immediately hit P. That is your default for pause and play. So if you do that, then you can freeze, get a camera position that you want to get, and then you'll be using these two little icons right here. So if you want to get the start of the clip exactly, click over here. It'll go as far as it can over. That way you can get the start of the clip as you can. And then you're going to want to drag this, if it's not by default, to 0, 0. And then if you like where your camera's positioned, so let's say you want to go up a little higher, down, it also be based off of where your camera is, not your player icon over there. So right here, I say I want to start right here to get the capture of the crafter turning on and off. We're going to hit this add position keyframe and add time keyframe. This gives us our starting position. Now, for example, if we want to go very, very slow to where it gets turned on like that, we can then go down here, get an angle of it going up like that. And if we wanted to slow it down, so by default, it goes based off the time that the clip goes. So we're at 1 second, the clip's at a little bit over 1 second compared to where we were. Say I want to slow that down to about 4 seconds. I can move this little area different from here to the time I want, indicated by the little box on the right there. And then I could put another position keyframe, another time keyframe. So therefore, that little quick depower in there takes a bit longer. That way you can see exactly what's happening, it retracting the pistons and things like that. So next, we're going to want to not hit this button. This is going to do that. What hides this up here right now is mini HUD. That just kind of gives me a lot more info on the game and things like that. So usually there's a play button right here. There's a little speed bar right here for you to use as well. So what I'm going to do is hit this top play button or just hit P again, and it'll continue to go. And then now the crafter will start to work. Also, if you wanted to hide the player, the B button on your keyboard, and then just click visible. And that way you hide the player. if you don't want to see them. So now with the crafter started, we're going to have a little bit of a fan out over there. I'm going to want to go to the top now too. I'm going to extend this out a little bit as well. That way it's also a bit smoother to see and a bit to follow. Then now we're going to go down to the bottom where the output is shot out the bottom here. The crafted block. And then we'll go for a fly around the whole machine, going for a few times. So say we have it right there. If I want to do a smooth circle, I'm going to want to go back in time a little bit. You can always click back and go back in time. So say I want to get a little angle over here on the side, get a smooth circle, you're going to want to have like middle keyframes. So if I just went straight from over there to over there, it'll follow that path like that. So if I go around like this, you'll see the curve that it'll create, which is going to be what you want. See the little curve right there. That's what you're going to want, compared to it just be going straight across in a straight line. This way you get a smooth transition from side to side without anything going in the way. And so we don't want to include the end of the clip here. So now we're all done right here. All we're going to want to do is drag this back to the start. If you want to preview it, hit that play button right there, and you'll see the little replay file that we created here of the AutoCrafter working. You see it's a lot slower than it was actually real time. We'll go back to real time right here, where the crafter is actually running at the speed it does in game. And then we get the little smooth effect of it going around the whole side of the machine and seeing everything working in action. Now, once you're satisfied with your clip, you can also just hit this render camera path right here. I always keep default render in, MP4 custom bitrate, because I like 20 megabytes, looks pretty good, and also get 120 frame rate. That just allows for a smoother thing, especially when I'm doing slowdowns of it in the editing program itself, where I take this file and I edit it in Adobe Premiere. I render it in 120 frames. It allows me to slow it down and still look really smooth at lower speeds, which is what I do that for. Keep in mind, the more frames you're going to want to render, the longer the render will take. So you have a 12-hour time lapse of a world eater running. Just running it at 60 FPS. It's going to be perfectly fine for you, and it won't take as long to render. I always keep 1920 by 1080 for the render resolution, just because it's mainly what you're going to want to upload at anyway. That's what I play at anyway. So if I were to play at 1440p, I would change this to a different resolution to output. You can also click this button right here, rename it what you want to name it. You'll get rid of this part in front of the MP4. And we'll say, you know, crafter test. And you'll save that, and that'll be your output file once you name it. You do some other things in here. I really don't do that too much. Anti-aliasing, I always have it off. Not my thing. If you don't have the output here, you're going to want to get this from the video link down below. There will be a tutorial on how to set this up and get it to render and export. Now this one, of course, it doesn't work when you have sodium. There is a file for that, but I haven't upgraded myself personally. This will work with Optifine if you have that as well. We can also enable shaders real quick. So say I wanted to enable the shaders. Say I wanted to add shaders with Optifine, you can also do that as well. Of course, there is other mods, of course, that you can use shaders without needing Optifine. That way you can have the little bit of extra dramatic effect for the background. You can also do that. Back to the render here. Once you have everything all finalized and everything, you can click the render. It'll give you a little screen here that'll show the progress bar of it going around. It'll give you an estimated time, of course, and then a total time render at the end of how long it took to render that file. Then once you have it out, it's just going to be an output of an MP4 file. You can also just attach this to Discord or YouTube by itself because it's an MP4 file. They both support that. What I like to do, especially for the ones that I do time lapses for, say for this one, for example, where we were building a trenchless world eater, what I would do, if I'm going to edit this for the video, which will be in 2 weeks, I'm going to find a song either on NCS, NCS Arcade, Alex Productions, SoundRide Music, all these other non-copyright artists here. I will find a song that I like the flow of it too. And if it matches what we're doing, of course, here we're building a world eater. So I would find a sound that's a little bit more aggressive. And then basically what I'll do is whatever that sound is, so say for example, it's a 1.5-minute song, I will put my ending keyframe at 1.5 minutes. That way I know I only have 1.5 minutes to do whatever I want to do with this time lapse to fit the song perfectly. Now you could also do some other things where you don't fit the song perfectly, but my personal opinion, I find that song I want to use first, then I edit my replay file down to that time. That way it just flows a bit smoother and is consistent across the whole thing. That way you're not having different speeds across the whole time lapse. You have one constant speed. If you want to do it really good, really easily, if you don't have time to do a lot of editing with the replay file. So say my replay file right here is 90 minutes. And I want to just do 30-minute increments down to 30 seconds. So I have 1 minute and 30. So what I'll do is I'll jump to the first 30 minutes right here. Click that, it'll upload it, it'll update on its end. Then we'll drag this here back to 30 seconds and put our keyframes here. Of course, we need a starting keyframes. You got to do that first. Your starting keyframes at the start, or else it'll fail. So when we first load into it, we're going to put our keyframes right here, and we're going to go to 30 minutes down the line. And then we're going to scroll, use this bar right here, scroll back to 30 seconds. That way we have consistency. So then we go with the 60 and then 90, and then we have it at 1 and 130. That way it's smooth. The whole time lapse is just smooth and a consistent speed across everything. And so if you want to do a delete keyframe, for example, highlight the keyframe, hit the button on the red, delete it there. That way we'll delete these because I'm going to be using this as a replay file for that video themselves. That way you can just start over if you wanted to as well. So yeah, that's basically everything about ReplayMod. In a quick summary, like I said, of course, there is going to be a lot more tutorials. You need to get it downloaded first as well, which will take you a little bit to get used to. Like I said, you can also record on multiplayer, but it will only record. The main thing about ReplayMod is it only records what chunks are loaded on your end. So even if you're on a server and you have the whole area chunk loaded, it will only load chunks that you have loaded the player itself, because it's based on the player. Now, there are different replay file mods that work on servers and like that. That way you can have a constant area that's being loaded for moving around across a perimeter, for example. This one, for example, is Dazi building a world eater. You can see just how much easier it is to track and more eye-catching to see all the progress than compared to your first-person time lapses that I used to do back in the day. And see, going back over across a world eater length here, going back and forth like Dazi is doing. It's a bit hard to track, but it will take a lot more time to do so, but it is possible. So tracking like this isn't the best. Of course, when Dazi switches angles like that, it's a little bit harder to track too, but it's still a pretty decent time lapse to capture the building of a large scale world eater for the Nether year. Make sure to like, subscribe, all sorts of things, and I'll see you in the next one.